So my biggest fear is public speaking. My parents escaped from Poland when it was under Soviet occupation. I was born in an American refugee camp. And after 9 months, they migrated to the US with $100 and no English. I first spoke Polish at home, and when I went to school in the beginning, the kids quickly made fun of me because of my accent, because I didn't know the words, and I grew a trauma of speaking in public. But through mindfulness and lots of practice, I'm not so much afraid now to do it. I like to move, and yes, I was at a zoo in Belgium. I thought it'd be nice to get a picture for social media, and the pelican decided to try my head, but their mouths are actually really soft. And no animals were harmed in the making of that photo. Many of you heard Peter talk today. I'm not titled Chief Mindfulness Officer, but I have a full-time role at a big technology company leading mindfulness, and we have a second employee dedicated to mindfulness. So there's 2 of us doing this. And I'm also an assistant teacher at the Oxford Mindfulness Foundation. I also supervise teachers in training, and from being a boy, learning Shaolin Kung Fu, that's where my journey started with meditation and mindfulness. So key takeaways from that, let's connect on LinkedIn. Happy to support you on your mindful journey. I have a little bit of experience. There's lots of people that have a lot more than me, but happy to support you. And for those of you that know me, I'm always giving slides, advice, mentoring, coaching, etc. Free courses, so if you're interested in that. And yes, pelicans have soft teeth. Okay, we're transitioning to the next thing, maybe shifting some attention now to the feet. Getting a sense of the feet on the floor. Perhaps practicing an attitude of beginner's mind. I guess before I share this, nobody really raised their hand for when I asked if you know what Kyndryl is. But if I asked you to raise your hand, have you heard of IBM? Raise your hand if you've heard of IBM. Except the cameraman. So IBM, big company, we all know and heard. But what I would like for you to imagine first is you're working at a company, a well-known company. You have a great job. You've been there for many years. You have a successful role. People know you. Wherever you go, you walk with an IBM badge on your chest. And all of a sudden you hear, we're spinning off a big portion of the company. 90,000 employees to be exact. And you're one of them. And there's no name yet for this company. Let's call it NewCo for now. That could be a little bit frustrating, challenging, emotional, etc. And that's what happened 2 years ago. IBM had the spin-off, $19 billion part of the business. It was very uncertain time. We didn't know yet who's going to be our CEO, who's really going over, how that's going to look like. And spin-offs are never easy. Spin-offs are never easy. So the takeaways from that, just so you have a little sense of what Kyndryl is, and the takeaway, spin-offs are challenging and stressful, yet they're also a place where opportunities are made. Because now we have 90,000 employees, $19 billion, and you're working as a startup. You have a few years to break away, to make your business, to define your culture, and they ask me, would you like to lead the mindfulness program globally? Wasn't something I was doing full-time at IBM at the time, So I took the opportunity. But in particular, it's important to double down on your practice. When going through challenges, when going through spin-offs, redundancies, layoffs, we all know it's important to double down on your personal practice. Okay. Shifting attention now to the hands as we transition. Just getting a sense of the hands, maybe temperature, how dry, how moist the hands might be. Seeing if we can continue our practice of mindfully transitioning. So I decided to do something that a few people advised against, and many people said it's not going to work out. But I figured, what do I have to lose? And I decided to reach out to our new and upcoming CEO and ask him if he'd like to be my mentor. What's the worst he can say? No. Well, Martin said yes. Martin said yes, and not only have, as you can see, meditated with Martin twice, we've met 3 times online, 3 times in person, and having the CEO there, I didn't go to him to pitch or to sell. I really went there just to connect with him as a human being. I felt like if you go to him trying to pitch and sell, you're just going to be like anybody else who does it. So I really just came there to be myself, to connect as a human, to chat. Of course, some mindfulness came in here and there. I asked for advice, etc. I remember when I first met with him and we were talking about this mentorship, he said, "You know, Patrick, I don't really do this sort of mentoring thing. However, what's been really helpful for me in my career, and I think could be helpful for you, and I want to pass that knowledge down to you all, is having sponsors in the business or in the workplace or in your community." I said, "What do you mean by having sponsors?" And he says, people need to know about you. They need to remember you. They need to remember how you make them feel in their presence. Because they'll bring you up in conversation. Because when we're creating a new part of the business, when we're thinking about to allocate funding here, when we're thinking about this, do you know James? Do you know Jessica? Yeah, they're great at that. He said, it's important to have sponsors. He also said 3 things to run a business, advice: don't run out of money, don't do anything illegal, and always invest in the people. Always invest in the people. And Martin also told me to be bold. So that's one of the takeaways I'm leaving you. Be bold. Reach out to your CEO or whatever the hierarchy is. And seek out mentors. If I could add to that, seek out coaches as well. And there's free coaching here, I heard. So do that. And seek out sponsors. Okay? No matter how many years I've been practicing mindfulness, I was still very nervous. More nervous connecting with him than being with you all right now, to be honest. Okay. Building this mindfulness program, I've had some experience at IBM I'm not going to talk about today, but at Kyndryl, and Peter mentioned this earlier and others as well, so I'm trying not to repeat myself too much, but it's super important to have the community. And as we transition now, I want us to bring our attention to the people in this room. And that might mean looking around, that might mean maybe sensing or feeling them. What is it like just to bring the attention to maybe even the people outside that we can hear? Seeing if we could be more compassionate in how we relate to the people around us, the community that we're cultivating here at Mindful Leader. So I won't talk too much about the power of the importance of the community. Maybe the only thing that I can add that I really didn't hear today, but I'm sure they're doing, is localize it. Localize it. Make sure you have it in different languages. Empower the community. We make sure to make things secular and get rid of kind of that woo-woo, if I use that word. So have some kind of filtration system or mechanism. And I guess what I will leave you from my project management experience, how do you manage the community? How do you manage the structure or the leadership team or the volunteers or the teachers, etc.? And the way that I've structured it is, in order to capture the different time zones, you have to have at least 2 or 3 of the same meetings at a different time zone. So for example, Tuesdays in the morning, if you're in the US, and at night, or if you're in Europe, US in the middle, etc. And we have a sprint that lasts a month. So the first week is all about planning for the month. The second and third week is our kind of weeklies. And then we end the month with a retrospective as well as a showcase, which then feeds into what I'm going to talk about next. One of the ideas that I constantly have in the back of my mind, and Peter mentioned this or alluded to this yesterday, is I want to create a role, or I want to create a movement or a program where I'm not needed anymore, where I can walk out this hotel, get hit by a car, and go with a smile, knowing that it will continue. And that's kind of the mindset that I'm having and what I'm doing with the community. And I know that's my strength, so I'm putting all my strength into them as well. If you have strong roots, there was a horrific event in Hawaii not too long ago, I'm sure you heard, but there was also this tree there, this giant, magnificent tree, really strong roots. And the only reason it survived is because of its really strong roots. So think of the community as the roots, right? As the leadership changes, and you have to empower the community, right? You have to recognize them, give them points, give them gadgets. That doesn't always mean you give them money or things. We have a newsletter and we have a champion of the month, and we recognize them on LinkedIn internally. We let their leadership team know, etc. Transitioning, shifting our attention now to the breath. Where do you feel the breath the most? Maybe it's in the belly, maybe in the chest, maybe in the throat, maybe around the nostrils. One of my mentors, he said, Patrick, there's so much going on with this transformation and this spin-off. We have so many processes, so many changes, so many IT transformations, the whole branding thing, the whole culture thing. There's going to be trainings and this and that. If we focus on mindfulness, or if you start doing mindfulness, it's just going to be one more thing. It's just another thing. And he said, don't make it another thing. How can you make it essential? How could you make it part of Kyndryl? And that's where our culture transformation came in. Luckily, going into Kyndryl, the chief cultural officer, Martin nominated Chief Cultural Officer, Nella Kott. She was one of my key sponsors. That and the delivery leader, so the people that really deliver all the services. And I made sure to align everything that we do to the Kyndryl way. That's our company values, our norms, our leadership behaviors, our behaviors in general. I won't go into detail with the Kyndryl way, but what I decided to do, in the beginning, it was mindfulness at Kyndryl. Then we rebranded to Kyndryl Mindful because the naming convention started to be Kyndryl Bridge, Kyndryl Consult, Kyndryl Foundation, Kyndryl Care, Kyndryl this. So aligning again. We then decided to, when we do our pre and post assessments, that we always ask questions aligned to the culture, aligned to the specific values and points. So we could then come back to other executives or other businesses and say, hey, we're actually improving our ability to be empathetic, to be fast, to be focused, to be devoted, etc. And I kept telling all the community members to be cultural influencers, to be brand ambassadors. Every time there was a nomination, a recommendation to join one of the programs, I pushed it so we could really weave and integrate into the culture. It was essential for growing the mindfulness program. As you can see, our purpose is empowering Kyndryls with mindfulness to advance the Kyndryl way. Become an influencer, ambassador, advocate, champion. Once you have strong roots and you're taking care of those roots, it really starts interweaving and shaping the culture. And align everything that you do as well as measure what you do, not only okay, it's going to help with well-being, okay, it's going to help with focus, with decision-making, which we did, but also to what the culture is all about. Taking a few moments now to shift your attention to the eyes. And you can have your eyes open, but if you do have your eyes closed, I invite you to shift the attention to the back of the eyelids. It's not an area we often pay attention to. Maybe just getting a sense of the eyes. Maybe there's some buzzing, some movement, some squiggly lines from the light patterns. Another thing I want to share is you need the executives. I decided to create an executive advisory board. 3 members of our C-suite are on this board, are on the board, and then 2 other C-suite members have nominated someone, and then there's other key senior vice presidents or vice presidents, directors from across the business. We meet on a regular basis. We talk about what we're doing. We align to the strategy. There's voting. I also thought, well, not all these executives understand mindfulness, so we started also integrating practices into those meetings, so they're learning each time. It's very tough to get senior executives on an hour call, so the agenda's tight and we have to rehearse. Not everyone always makes it, but in order to get everyone's vote, I started introducing voting, and we use Microsoft, so forms in order to vote. So then I can say that it's not just me or the community deciding on the action, it's actually backed by the business. And we're now even expanding the role of this advisory board, but I won't be going into that today. I do want to shout out to one of our executives who's here, our Director for Health and Safety, Jeff. Thank you for being here. Network and partner with executives across the business, create a board. And what's interesting is not all the employees, how do I put this? With time, things change, and an employee now or a manager now might be a director, a vice president, an executive tomorrow. So treat everyone like you would treat an executive, because you never know. And one of the best cases is we have a most senior executive now in the Americas who wasn't an executive, who I was doing mindfulness sessions for, and she recently became the executive, now is one of the sponsors, has been even joining the yoga sessions that we're leading within the company. All right, I'm mindful of the time. As we transition, maybe taking a few moments just to listen, not to judge, not to label, but just to listen to the sound of life in the moment. And I know many of us like the sound of money. So what do you do if you have a budget? You invest it in the teachers, in teacher training. You invest it in getting facilitators. You invest it in the community. And if there's some left over, you invest it for travel and coming to events like this one. My takeaways for budget is spend it quickly, because we all know budgets can change, executives can change, there's cuts here and there. Invest in the teachers, facilitators, and give back to the people that are supporting you. Shifting our attention now to sense of space. Sense of space. Maybe that's a temperature, maybe that's pressure. Partnerships are important. We've decided to partner with the Oxford Mindfulness Foundation. It's important not only to partner so you get some credentials, so it's not just a program that you invent in your garage, and it speaks easier to the employees and to the executives and to other partners and clients, the ecosystem. We've been creating really great stuff that I'll be happy to talk about in person, what we're doing with Oxford and their ecosystem. We still continue a regular podcast with IBM. My co-host has tasked me to invite speakers. So if anyone wants to be on a podcast, I think we have our 75th episode now, the Mindfulness Podcast. And don't only partner with big things or big names like EY, which I love very much, but partner also internally with this business resource group, with this team, partner with the sellers, partner with the IT, partner locally. The site can partner with something, the country can partner with something. It's a lot more difficult to partner globally with something, more processes, more frameworks, etc. And also you as an individual partner as well with people that are like-minded, like spirit. Last but not least, maybe just transitioning to taste. It's not one that we often do without eating a raisin, but maybe just feeling how the mouth is. Maybe there's some aftertaste. You need to teach mindfulness. That's key. Drop-in sessions. What do you do in the drop-in sessions? How do you scale the program? The analogy I was telling some of my groups yesterday was arriving to the beach can be very daunting if it's your first time. Arriving to the beach, imagine it's the first time at the beach. Entering the world of mindfulness is like arriving to the beach for the first time. Where do I go? What do I do? What's this sand for? What do I do? How do I get in the water, etc. What we do at Kyndryl is we start out with, we have a self-paced online course, we have drop-in sessions, but we have an introducing mindfulness program that teaches people how to navigate the beach. If you like the beach and you want to stay at the beach, or if you want to learn how to swim or dive or be a lifeguard, then you scale up for longer programs, etc. And then facilitator, teacher training, etc. Align your teaching again to the company culture, etc. Drop-in sessions are key. Think short and long courses, because how are you going to build and scale this for the long term aligned to the company culture? And my last part, as we transition, aligning to intention. Aligning to intention. How do you want to be in the next moment? What do you want to put in the next moment, not what you want to get out of it? I work in a Fortune 400 company where profits and margins are always on the mind of people. So we're now in a very interesting place where we're transitioning mindfulness into more of that. Not only return on investment, but we're actually seeing that it's making us recognize on the market. We won an award not too long ago from Newsweek as one of the, I think, top 20 most loved workplaces, and it particularly mentioned because of our meditation yoga programs, which we did. And that was the biggest company at that list. What I want to say is there's other awards that we're winning, but we're also thinking now, how can we start bringing this more into the ecosystem, into our clients, into our business partners, etc., and also becoming perhaps a revenue generating part of the business. So align to the strategy of the company, bring this to your sellers and clients, figure out how to measure your own ROI. And last but not least, additional things to consider. The more you give, the more you get back, so keep giving. I know we're enthusiasts or interested in mindfulness, so we understand the value of giving, so give. Have events. There's lots of events happening around you in your organizations all the time. See if you could partner with those people, do a little session. This is a long process. This didn't start for me 2 years ago when Kyndryl started. Agility is key. Agile practices, design thinking, and align to goals. Not only company goals, but also your own personal goals. I thank you kindly, and I wish you a mindful rest of the day.